Hi, Professor Adam Flaherty here again. Today we're going to go over run-on sentences. So if you watched the previous video, we talked about the definition of a sentence, independent clauses, dependent clauses, different sentence types, and all of that's going to be really important when it comes to identifying run-on sentences. And identifying run-on sentences is really important because, especially if you're in a college level English class, you just really need to be able to write a complete sentence. If you can't write complete sentences, you're probably not going to pass. So, as I toyed with ideas on how to go about this, I figured the best way, or at least the best idea I came up with, was to just show you, model how I would go through proofreading and fixing run on sentences. So, on the right, I have some examples. Feel free to pause and try these on your own, see how you would punctuate them, where you would put periods or semicolons or commas. And on the left, I wanted to keep up notes from the previous video. So we have independent clause, dependent clause, C for coordinating conjunction, the different sentence types. I'm going to be talking about these because if we can identify what these sentences are, it will help us punctuate them. And add a little note that a comma C or comma coordinating conjunction is the exact same thing as a semicolon, is the exact same thing as a period. I shouldn't say exact same thing. They're slightly different. A period is a full stop to the end of a sentence, where the other two are combining independent clauses into one sentence. But grammatically, they really function pretty much the same. And a quick note, you cannot separate two independent clauses with just a comma. So bear with me. The rest of this is going to be me proofreading these and walking you through the process out loud. So especially if you are someone who has trouble with run-on sentences, or double especially if you are one of my students who I specifically directed to this video, like I said, not only pay attention to what I'm doing and how I'm fixing them, but after you feel like you got the hang of it, pause and try to copy these down and see how you would fix them. Okay, my mother and father are coming to dinner tonight. So first thing I want to do is always find the verb. Okay, are coming. And then I find the subject, who or what are coming, mother and father. So it has a subject, compound subject here, mother and father, has verb, are coming. Can I say this out loud? My mother and father are coming to dinner tonight. Yep. So that's fine. Not a run on sentence. It's one thought, one idea. It's got a subject and a verb. It's an independent clause. Okay. I hate doing grammar. It makes me tired. Okay. Verb, hate. Who or what hates doing grammar? I has a subject and a verb. I hate doing grammar. Hey, that's an independent clause. And then it makes me tired. Verb is makes. Who or what makes me tired? It. This has a subject and a verb, which means that's a complete thought as well. So we highlight that in green. We have two independent clauses. This is our first example of a run-on sentence because you cannot separate two complete sentences, two independent clauses, with just a comma. So like for all of these, there are going to be multiple ways you can fix this. I can put I hate doing grammar, comma, for it makes me tired. I know that's one of our less used coordinating conjunctions, but it fits there. Or I can do I hate doing grammar, semicolon, it makes me tired. Or I can do I hate doing grammar, period, it makes me tired. Whatever one you choose, however you want your sentence to look. I could get into some other ways of turning one of these into a dependent clause, but I'm going to save that for later. My sister was taller than me when we were young. Now I am the tallest, and it is fun. Okay, so was is our verb. Who or what was taller than me? Sister. My sister was taller than me when we were young. Were is a verb. Who or what were young? We. So I have a subject and a verb. Here I had a subject verb. My sister was taller than me. And it's a complete thought. It's an independent clause. When we were young. It had a subject, we, has a verb, were young. But it can't stand alone. I can't come up to you and say, when we were young. It needs something else. So that's a dependent clause. Now I am the tallest, and it is fun. Okay, now I am the tallest. Am is our verb. Who or what? Am the tallest. I, so subject, verb. I am the tallest. Now I am the tallest. That is an independent clause. And it is fun. It is fun. Is a verb. Who or what is fun? It is fun. And that's an independent clause. So wow, we get a complicated sentence here. We have an independent clause followed by a dependent clause followed by an independent clause followed by another independent clause. So how are we going to do this? My sister was taller than me when we were young. That's independent clause, dependent clause. Well, look, independent clause, dependent clause doesn't get anything between it, so that's fine as it is. But then I'm starting a new independent clause. Now I am the tallest. So this is one of the spots we have a run on. I can change this to a period. I can do a comma coordinating conjunction. My sister was taller than me when we were young, but now I'm the tallest and it was fun. So comma coordinating conjunction or period. And again, always it's going to be any of those three, whatever your preference is. Now, this isn't a run-on, but if you notice, I do have an independent clause and then another independent clause and the word and between it. So if I have two independent clauses separated by the word and, one of our for and nor but or yet so fanboys, I should throw a comma there. Quick, going back to the beginning, my mother and father are coming to dinner tonight. I did not throw a comma before this and because this and is not acting as a coordinating conjunction. It's just combining two subjects. There was not a complete sentence on each side like there is down here. I love school and I love learning. My teacher is nice. Okay. I'm not going to do the whole subject verb thing every single time slowly out loud, just to speed things up. I love school. That has a subject and a verb and it's a complete thought. I love learning. Subject, verb, complete thought. My teacher is nice. Subject, verb, complete thought. My goodness, I have three independent clauses in this sentence. Well, these ones already have the word and here, so I might as well keep that and just throw a comma. And then, run-on sentence, I have just a comma here. We can, I love school, comma, and I love learning, comma, and I don't want to use a comma coordinating conjunction because then it just seems wordy. Not a run-on, but wordy. So this would be a good place. Yeah, I'm going to go with a fancy old semicolon, make that look more collegey. I love school, comma, and I love learning, semicolon, my teacher is nice. And that works. I don't want much for Christmas. I just want some chocolates and a little toy car. Notice how if you read these out loud when you have a comma, you kind of naturally pause. That doesn't mean you absolutely should not go back and change every single comma in your paper to a period. But if you are someone who has a problem with run-on sentences, check your commas because a lot of times you're probably using a comma instead of a period. So I have a comma. I know I have a problem with run-on, so I'm going to test the left of it. I don't want much for Christmas. Hey, that's a sentence. I'm going to test the right of it. I just want some chocolates and a little toy car. Hey, that's a sentence too. Now I have two sentences, two independent clauses, separated with just a comma. So I know that's a run-on, and I know how to fix it. I can throw a fanboy here. I don't want much for Christmas, comma, for, comma, but, or, nor, so, and. Yeah, I'm not loving any of the coordinating conjunction choices. So if I don't want it to sound awkward, I'm going to go with another semicolon. Or I could go with a period. Or if you like one of the fanboys there, go ahead and go with one of them. Blue is my favorite color. Independent clause. It is the color of the sky and sea, and it reminds me of my favorite insect. It is the color of the sky and sea. Independent clause. And it reminds me of my favorite insect, which is the butterfly. And that's another independent clause. Notice which is the butterfly, not a dependent clause because there's not a subject and a verb in it, so that's just, I call that extra information added onto the sentence. Good detail. Blue is my favorite color. I need something here or I've got to run on. Semicolon. It is the color of the sky and the sea. I have an and, a fanboy, a coordinating conjunction, combining, separating two complete independent clauses, two sentences, so I need a comma there. When I get older, I want to have a big family. I like big families. When I get older, get is my verb, who or what gets older, I, so it has a subject and a verb. When I get older, that can't stand alone. It has a subject and a verb, but it can't stand alone, so it's a dependent clause. I want to have a big family, has a subject and a verb, and it stands alone, independent clause. I like big families. Subject, verb, complete thought, independent clause. So how do I punctuate this if I've got a D first, followed by an I, followed by another I? Well, if I have a D and then an I, a dependent clause, and then an independent clause, I need a comma. So when I get older, comma, I want to have a big family. And then this is where my big problem area is here, because this is my run-on. I have a comma separating two independent clauses. Period. Or, you know what, this is a place where we can talk about a different way to combine these. Instead of just doing a comma coordinating conjunction or a semicolon or a period, the other option you have is to change the independent clause into a dependent clause. So if we go back to that, when I get older, I want to have a big family. Because I like big families. By adding the word because to this independent clause, I've changed it to a dependent clause. It still has a subject, I, still has a verb, like, but if I come up to you and say, because I like big families, it can't stand alone. What piece of punctuation do I need between family and because? Nothing. Look, if you have an independent clause followed by a dependent clause, no punctuation. So that is your other option, in addition to put a period, put a semicolon, put a comma coordinated conjunction between two independent clauses. The other option is make it one of these two types, d comma I or id. We usually leave at 11, but today is different. We are leaving at 10:30. We usually leave at 11, independent clause. But today is different, independent clause, short one, but independent clause. We are leaving at 10:30, independent clause. I've got three independent clauses. Because I've already got the word but there, it just makes sense for me to do a comma because I've already got the coordinating conjunction. So this becomes a compound sentence. We usually leave at 11, comma, but today is different. And then here is where my actual run-on is between different and we. I could put a period there, and then I'd capitalize the W. I can put a semicolon there. I suppose I can do another comma and coordinating conjunction. It gets kind of clunky if you use two of those in one sentence. Or we can use that other way I just mentioned, and because works again here. I can turn this now into a dependent clause, and then I don't need any punctuation. Today is different. Sorry about that. That's still part of the first independent clause. But today is different because we are leaving at 10:30. How long is? Okay, I'm 10 minutes in. I'm going to go for about another 10 minutes or so, and then I'll leave some of these up there. And if you have questions, like I said, if you're in my class, feel free, email me and ask. But hopefully this is helpful, just watching somebody else go through this and learning. I like Tuesdays and Wednesdays, and I like Fridays because the weekend starts on Fridays. And by the way, I'm reading these out loud, obviously, so you can hear me read them. But if you are proofreading, I strongly recommend reading out loud. It causes you to slow down. When we read in our heads, we tend to read a lot faster. We also tend to read what we think the words say, maybe rather than what the words say. Where if we slow down and read out loud, we might catch an error that we know. And often, a lot of times, especially with run-ons, you'll notice if you read it out loud, your voice kind of naturally pauses where the run-on is. I like Tuesdays and Wednesdays, and I like Fridays because the weekend starts on Friday. So I had a little small natural pause before and that's going to be where my punctuation is going to go. I like Tuesdays and Wednesdays, independent clause. I like Fridays, independent clause. Because the weekend starts on Friday, that's a dependent clause. Well, I change highlighter color quickly because it's why is it a dependent clause? Has a verb, starts, who or what starts on Friday. Weekend has a subject. Weekend has a verb, starts, and it is not a complete thought because the weekend starts on Friday. So how do I punctuate this? I have an independent clause and a coordinating conjunction because it's separate. I know this and is a coordinating conjunction because it's separating two independent clauses. I like Tuesdays and Wednesdays. I like Fridays, which means it gets a comma. And then what punctuation goes after Fridays? Nothing. That's an ID sentence. Independent clause followed by dependent. We should get moving. There's no time to waste. Notice how reading that out loud, my voice sort of naturally paused after moving. Not because I tried to, just I bet you if you read it out loud, that's kind of what you do because your ear is probably attuned to hearing complete sentences and even speaking in complete sentences, even if you have trouble writing them. So we should get moving. Subject, verb, complete thought. There's no time to waste. Subject, verb, complete thought. My three easy options, comma, for. For just makes sense. I hate that I'm using for a lot, but that's the one out of and, but, or, nor, for, so yet that seems to make the most sense to me. Or, semicolon, or period, capital T, or our fourth option, turn this into a dependent clause. I also notice I'm using because a lot. It just seems to make sense. Because is not the only word, the only subordinating conjunction to use to make a dependent clause. Go ahead and watch that last video and you'll see a nice little chart of them. Justin, will you wash the car? It really needs it. Justin, will you wash the car? Here's one where I don't really have a choice. Because it's a question, I've got to put my end punctuation and then capitalize that second independent clause. So we have question and then another statement, two independent clauses. There are always multiple ways to fix run-on sentences, but it all starts with proofreading carefully. There are always multiple ways to fix run-on sentences is a complete sentence. It all starts with proofreading carefully. Notice when I read that, I don't read the coordinating conjunction in the sentence because I leave those out. Those are the sort of in-between parts. It all starts with proofreading carefully. That's a sentence. I'm combining two sentences, two independent clauses. I use those terms interchangeably a lot. I'm combining them with a coordinating conjunction, but, which means, comma, but, it all starts on my I, comma, ci sentence right over here. I'll wash the car after I eat supper. I'll wash the car is a sentence. After I eat supper is a dependent clause. Eat is our verb. Who or what is going to eat supper? I am going to eat supper. So it's got a subject, it's got a verb, but it can't stand alone. After I eat supper, what happens after I eat supper? So it's a dependent clause. So the punctuation I need in here is, that's right, nothing. It's an ID sentence. Independent clause, dependent clause. Hey, let's just switch those around. After I eat supper, I'll wash the car. After I eat supper is still a dependent clause, and didn't change. I'll wash the car is still an independent clause, didn't change. But what does change is now I have the dependent clause coming first. So D, comma, I. Dependent clause, comma, independent clause. Just in search for the following items: bucket and sponge. Just in search for the following items is my sentence, and then bucket and sponge, that's telling me what the items are. A colon would go here. I wish I'd remembered to take this one out because we're not going over colons today, so don't worry about that. There's your independent clause, and then we'll go over colons another time. The wax on the top shelf in the garage is too high for me to reach, so I need a small stepladder, otherwise I won't be able to get it. Oh my. Let's see. The wax on the top shelf in the garage is too high for me to reach. Okay, that's my sentence. The wax on the top shelf in the garage is too high for me to reach. Where's my verb? Is. Okay, what's my subject? Who or what is too high for me to reach? The wax. So it has a subject is, it has a subject wax, has a verb is, and that's my complete thought. The wax on the top shelf in the garage is too high for me to reach. Okay, so that's a coordinating conjunction, so I'm going to leave it out for now to see if it is a coordinating conjunction in the sentence. I need a small stepladder. Independent clause. Need is our verb, I is our subject, I need a small stepladder is our complete thought. Otherwise, I won't be able to get it. Otherwise, I won't be able to get it. Another independent clause. Subject I, verb, let's see, won't be able, I won't or won't. So this is the one, first one where we're going to use this formula. Our independent clause, semicolon, transition word. Otherwise is one of those transition words like however, moreover, furthermore, consequently, etc., etc. You can Google a nice chart of transition words. First, I'm going to deal with this first one though. The wax on the top shelf is too high for me to reach, and I already have so there. So the sentence is already using a coordinating conjunction. Why not keep it? Just make sure I use it correctly and put the comma with the coordinating conjunction for my I, comma, ci sentence. I need a small stepladder. Otherwise, so this is my next run-on, or my real run-on right here between ladder and otherwise. I have two sentences that are smushed together, running into one another. So I'm going to throw a semicolon here. The reason I'm choosing a semicolon is because I know otherwise, because it's a transition word, it's going to get a comma after it. And oh, I just love this type of sentence. It looks so fancy. It makes you look like you're such an intellectual writer. So you don't have to use a semicolon. You could use a period. I would say a comma coordinating conjunction. This is one place where it wouldn't really work because the coordinating conjunction kind of won't go nicely bumped up against the transition word. I could do that. And either way is fine. Again, just for looks, for aesthetics, I like that. Okay, Justin fills the bucket with water and sprays the car. Where does our comma go? Nowhere. It's a trick. That is a trick question. This is one independent clause. Justin fills the bucket with water and sprays the car. Why no comma before and? Well, test. Is there a sentence to the left of it? Is there a sentence to the right of it? Is it acting as a coordinating conjunction, separating two independent clauses? Justin fills the bucket with water. Yeah, that's an independent clause. Sprays the car. That's not an independent clause. So right here, the and is only separating two verbs. He fills and sprays, the two things he does. So that's just one independent clause. Not a run-on at all. He washes and dries the car. It begins to shine. Here's our first independent clause. He washes and dries the car. Again, I don't need a comma before and because it's separating two verbs, washes and dries. It's not separating two complete independent clauses. And then it begins to shine is another independent clause. These are two real small simple sentences, so let's just turn them into a compound sentence with comma so. Ooh, help if I hit the O. Comma so. Or semicolon. Or period, capitalize the I. I'm going to go with comma coordinating conjunction here. Where are we at time? Oh, 21 minutes in. I'm going to finish this page and I'll leave you with the yeah, after 25 they just keep going. So there's always more practice we can do. When he uses a towel to dry the car, the neighbors compliment how nice it is because they are jealous. Okay, this one we got to figure out we have two dependent clauses in this sentence. When he uses a towel to dry the car is a dependent clause. Subject and verb, he uses, but not a complete thought. I can't come up to you and say, when he uses a towel to dry the car, it needs more, which is why the sentence has more. But, well, first let's label this an independent clause. The neighbors compliment how nice it is. That's our independent. So what I'm saying is we have a dependent clause first and then an independent clause. We need our comma after our dependent clause, D comma I. And then because they are jealous, that's another dependent clause. Are is our verb, they is our subject, they are jealous. But because they are jealous is not a complete sentence. I can't come up to you and say because they are jealous. So it has a subject, has a verb, but it's not a complete thought, which means it's a dependent clause. It can't stand on its own. That's fine. It's not standing alone. It's part of this longer sentence. And it's also fine that we have no punctuation between it, is, and because it's an ID. So that sentence is a D comma ID sentence. Next, Justin adds a coat of wax to the car, but he does not buff it. Next is a transition word. So I know this isn't a comma lesson, but I'm just going to throw my comma after my transition word. Next, Justin adds a coat of wax to the car. That's a sentence. That's an independent clause. I'm going to leave the but out. I always leave my fanboys out when I'm doing my little proofreading run-on test. He does not buff it. That's an independent clause. I can come up to you, say that, it makes sense, has a subject and a verb. He does not buff it. It sounds weird, and so because I have two independent clauses and I have a coordinating conjunction between them, I can throw the comma there. Or if you don't like that, go ahead and get rid of but and throw a semicolon, or throw a period. But if you have the but there, just remember you can't just throw a semicolon there because it's the comma that goes with the coordinating conjunction. So you want to use a semicolon? Fine. Get rid of but. You want to keep the but? Go with the comma. And there. When Justin's brother saw the car, he was very pleased with Justin's work, so he offered to pay Justin. Again, even reading these out loud, I just naturally pause. And it's not like I was practicing. I just pulled these off the internet as examples of run-on sentences. So this is the first time I'm reading a lot of them. I don't know if I should admit that. When Justin's brother saw the car, I have Justin's brother saw the car. That's a sentence, but it starts with when, which makes it not a sentence anymore, makes it a dependent clause. When Justin's brother saw the car, subject and verb, incomplete thought, he was very pleased with Justin's work. That's an independent clause. He was very pleased with Justin's work. Stands alone, has a subject and a verb. He was. I'm going to leave the so out because for and nor but or yet so. It's one of my potential coordinating conjunctions. He offered to pay Justin. He offered. Subject verb. He offered to pay Justin. Complete thought. So now I know that so is a coordinating conjunction because it's separating one independent clause from another independent clause, which means it needs to be paired with my comma. And because I have a dependent clause coming first, when Justin's brother saw the car, followed by an independent clause, I need a comma there. So that's how I do that sentence. The car looked wonderful. It looked like new. I took a long pause there. We know where the run-on is. The car looked wonderful. Car looked, subject verb. The car looked wonderful. Complete thought. It looked like new. It looked, subject verb. It looked like new, complete thought. Run-on sentence, two independent clauses with nothing between them. Comma, the car looked wonderful, comma, and it looked like new. Or semicolon, it looked like new. Or period, and capitalize that I, it looked like new. Or the car looked wonderful. I'm trying to think of I'm going with because again. I was trying to just, my head's stuck on because. I couldn't come up with another dependent clause, so I could do that. However you want to do it. Justin saw clouds in the sky. He hopes it doesn't rain because that would dirty the car. Justin saw clouds in the sky. That's an independent clause. Justin saw, subject verb. It stands alone. Justin saw clouds in the sky. He hopes it doesn't rain. Another independent clause. He hopes, subject verb. He hopes it doesn't rain. And then because that would dirty the car. That would dirty the car. That would, subject verb. But because that would dirty the car, I can't come up to you and say that. It's an incomplete thought, making it a dependent clause. So we have independent, independent, dependent. What do I need? Well, I can't have two independents in a row. I need to make that one of these compound sentences with either a comma, Justin saw clouds in the sky, comma, but he hopes it doesn't rain, comma, coordinating conjunction. Or semicolon, he hopes it doesn't rain. Or period, capitalize that H. Or it can make one of these fancy sentences. Justin saw clouds in the sky. However, comma, he hopes it doesn't rain. Again, this is the fancy one that I like. That's no different than that, except I'm choosing to start this next independent clause with a transition word. Like I said, when you start sentences with transition words, you put a comma after it. I like this one best. Justin saw clouds in the sky. However, he hopes it doesn't rain because that would dirty the car. Independent clause. This now becomes part of my independent clause. And then dependent clause. And I guess I don't need to leave these up on my screen for a while because you can pause this if you want and go through some more. I think I had another 15 or something. Yeah, we'll end with number 15. I am glad this is over. Grammar is so boring. Well, we're finishing with a run-on sentence. I am glad this is over. Complete sentence, subject, verb, complete thought. Grammar is so boring. I actually like it. Independent clause, subject, verb, complete thought. Separated with just a comma. There's my run-on. I am glad this is over, comma. For grammar is so boring. Or get rid of the comma and change it to semicolon and no coordinate. I am glad this is over, semicolon. Grammar is so boring. I am glad this is over. If I want to start with the transition word, furthermore, grammar is so boring. And let's make this actually over. I'll leave it so it's actually correct. Hopefully that helped with run-on sentences. Leave those up. Go ahead and practice more on your own. Go back and even before I color code the heck out of this, pause and try these on your own. It's all about identifying independent clauses, identifying what parts of a group of words are actually sentences, what part of this sentence, how many independent clauses there are, where the dependent clauses are, and then knowing how to punctuate them, knowing what goes between independent clauses and what goes between dependent and independent clauses, and knowing that you can't use just a comma to separate two complete sentences. So whoops, run-on sentence. All my different ways to fix it. All right, that's it. Hopefully that helped. And 30 minutes.